Have you ever seen a movie and just wondered if you've ever felt emotion, like ever in your entire life? Let's have an animated discussion. Portrait of a Lady on Fire is set at the edge of the world, where a painter is hired to paint a wedding portrait for someone who is replacing her sister for an engagement. This movie stars Noemi Morla, Adele Inel, Luana Bajrami. It was written and directed by Selena Seama. When I say that I am obsessed with this movie, I love this movie. First of all, I'm a sucker for period pieces. Right off the bat, one of my favorite things about this movie is the silence and the stillness. This movie is so quiet. It is the ASMR of movies, in my humble opinion. It is a slow movie in a sense that it forces you to take your time. One reason for that is the time period. It's set in 1780, but also I've seen period pieces where they fill all the silence with sound for music. Pride and Prejudice is a good example of that. But I think Pride and Prejudice also did a good job of doing that because sometimes when they had no sound, everything was much louder, the scenes hit harder. But in this movie, because it's so quiet, everything hits almost. This movie wants you to sit in every emotion portrayed, process what they are processing, how they would have processed it. They would have had music in the background. And I think another reason for that is because music plays such a big part in this movie. It feels rare. It feels like something you have to want and go and make happen. And so it doesn't make sense to have a lot of music in this movie. If you've seen the movie, you understand the significance of music in this movie. So having the movie mostly silent is a genius mechanic. It's just my favorite. This movie is rife with symmetry and balance. It's a very visually pleasing movie. This is the first image that made me pause because, yes, the framing, the way she's shaped, the way she's backlit by the fire. I had to go back to the beginning and look at the second image because I immediately knew what this movie would be. Literal eye candy. And not for the nudity, but because it does such a good job of portraying moments in such a beautiful way. Even in this image, when she starts to look at the portrait that the other painter had drawn, you see the portrait is dead in the middle. Then you see Marianne is right there in front of the portrait in the middle. And then we see a dead on shot of just Marianne's face as she's reacting to this portrait. Selena does a really great job of making sure you know what to focus on. She minimalizes what is in the shots. She makes what needs to be the primary focus the focus. She does an amazing job of training your eye. You are going to look here. This is where you're looking. And it's beautiful. It's just I'm just gonna be like this the whole time, guys. You're gonna have to deal with me. I find it beautiful that Marianne's a painter, and every frame could be a painting. As we fast forward a bit, we hear one of the great many lines in this movie. Marianne is adamant to hear about what happened to the sister who died, and Sophie tells her, I think she jumped. And Marianne says, why? And Sophie proceeds to say, she didn't hear the lady scream. And then there's a pregnant pause to let the weight of that hit you. There's so much to unpack here. This is a relationship that Heloise has to walk into. She has to marry this person now because the first sister is gone. This is a relationship that made her sister decide it would be better to die silently than live this life. We don't know anything about the betrothed. Even Heloise says to Marianne knows as much as Heloise does, that he's a man from Milan. And that's it. And I love this line so much. I love Sophie's line so much about we didn't hear her scream because it showcases that the death wasn't dramatic. She wasn't trying to grab attention. She didn't care if anyone saw her. It wasn't a fit of passion. It was a methodical, intentional moment. It reminds me of the story of how slaves used to jump off of slave ships before they made it to the States because they knew death was preferable to the life that was waiting for them. There is a sense of control when you realize no one else can be in charge of whether you get to keep your life or not. And I hate that sometimes that is the only way to keep control. As a black woman, it's very hard to know that there are two sides of my history where if I was born at any other time, I probably would have chosen death. I know people don't like to talk about race anymore, or gender, or hot topics. There's something really important in the intersectionality of who you are, where your gender and your race cross. There's history there. There's straight history as a woman, and there's straight history as a black person. And when they cross, it gets muddled. And there are moments where you have to decide, am I more black or am I more woman? Am I more white or am I more man? There are moments where you have to pick which side of yourself you're going to express, which side of yourself you're going to fight for. And you are always all one person, but it's not always the case that you get to fight for all of you at the same time. An example of this is black women were huge in fighting in the suffragist movement. Huge, absolutely. Sojourner Truth has a whole speech saying, and I've plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me, and ain't I a woman? And it's this argument about even though she's a slave, and even though she can do and has been forced to do things that others would require men's work, doesn't she also count as a woman? You know? And in 1920, when women got the right to vote, that did not include black women. But black women fought for the right to vote with women. They fought hard. In that moment, black women did not realize they were only fighting for the woman's side of them. And then when they got the right to vote, they did not realize that in getting the right to vote, they were getting the right to vote for people who could just be women. We could not be women. We were not considered women. We were considered black objects. So we didn't get the right to vote, even though we fought as women for this right. So this death scene that we don't get to see on camera showcases a very real thing that happens for marginalized people groups, where death is preferable to the life that is inflicted upon them by someone who is perceived to have more power to them than them. So then the question is, who was braver, Heloise or her sister? And listen, I'm never going to praise suicide. I think if someone feels the need to end their life prematurely, there's a lot to unpack there. I'm not going to condemn it either. So this isn't romanticizing death. This is talking about a solution that a lot of people took to issues where they felt like they had no other choice and this was their only form of power. It's a lot to unpack. Next, the face. This interaction between us catching a glimpse of Heloise, the same amount that Marianne gets to see her, is just amazing. It not only showcases Marianne's struggle to capture her essence, to get a look of her, to draw her, but it also shows kind of how guarded Heloise is trying to be in this moment. If we fast forward to when they go on their next walk and it's so windy they have to cover their mouths, I also love being able to see Heloise's eyes, because in all honesty, the first thing I noticed about Heloise was her lips. She has this beautiful full mouth and a very gorgeous face. But when they cover her mouth and all you see are her eyes, they become even more striking. They become even more expressive. And her eyes are always full of fire. The first, I would say, half of the movie we see her in, they're full of fire. But it's an obvious way in the movie to isolate her eyes so that Marianne can really see them, you know? But it also shows that as guarded as Heloise is, her eyes are very honest and open. She has these moments of pure vulnerability where she just looks so young, like almost small, like that moment where she kisses her mom like she used to. And then you see these moments where her mouth is covered, where all you see is fire, and that's all that's in her eyes. There are two very poignant moments here that I find kind of entertaining that I don't know would have been poignant without the other. At one point, Marianne is in the kitchen with Sophie complaining that she can't get Heloise to smile, or she's never seen Heloise smile. And Sophie suddenly says, well, have you tried to be funny? And it's a very funny scene, and it kind of catches you off guard. It's like, well, what are you doing to make her funny? You gotta help the situation, you know? Or what are you doing to make her laugh? You gotta help the situation. But then we have a moment between Marianne and La Comtesse where La Comtesse says something funny and they both laugh. And then La Comtesse thanks Marianne for being funny. And Marianne says, I didn't do anything. And La Comtesse says, you're here. It takes two to be funny. I love this moment. I love this moment because it showcases that in some cases it takes vulnerability to be funny. Comedians talk about this all the time, where some of their hardest moments in life are what get the biggest laughs. That's how they're able to tell these funny stories. What I interpret here, and this might not have been Selena's interpretation or intention, is that Sophie's question can be reframed here from have you tried to be funny to have you tried to be there. Up until this moment, Marianne is trying so hard to convince Heloise that she will have a good life instead of really listening. It's just trying to justify her actions as a painter and trying to make Heloise feel better. But with L'Oncle Tess, she's actually listening to her. She probably because she's the client. She's just sitting there actually engaging in conversation instead of trying to convince L'Oncle Tess about something. But because she makes space to actually listen, even though the conversation isn't that deep, she's made space for L'Oncle Tess to trust her. Once Marianne and Heloise have a deeper, clearer understanding each other, we see the laughter, we see the warmness into Heloise because Marianne finally stopped trying to prove something and finally started trying to pay attention. Guys, Selena's a genius. I don't know if anyone knows this, but this director is a genius. When the portrait catches fire, I think this is one of those moments where Marianne is really struggling with what she's doing. I think this is one of those first moments where she's like feeling a little dishonest and really struggling with what she's doing to Heloise. I think she's really struggling with creating this image and how she's starting to feel for Heloise. Even if it's just a friend, I don't know if she has romantic intentions as of yet, but she's struggling with realizing what she's doing. And I think in some ways her burning this photo, even though it was an accident at first, she doesn't try to stop it. She eventually throws it in the fireplace, acknowledging that this is not the future that she wants for Heloise. There's a quick side note here. This picture doesn't flow into anything I'm talking about yet, but I just love this moment of peace. Sophie is capturing beauty. Marianne and Heloise are making food. And even though Heloise is about to be shipped off to be married and Sophie is trying to have an abortion, you can tell this is one of the best weeks of their lives. They are just so content with life in this moment. It's a moment you capture to think about later when you think about the good old days. It's one of those moments where you're just like, that was a really good time in my life. And it's crazy to be able to have a good time in your life when life is so hard, you know? You look at the flowers that Sophie is cross-stitching and you see them later where they're dying basically. And it's the end of the week, it's the end of this beautiful thing that's blossomed. Because the flowers are blossoming right as Heloise and Marianne are blossoming. And then they're dying as we get to the end where we know Heloise and Marianne will be ending. So here, the crux, the pinnacle, almost the climax of this whole, the title of the movie. Here is everything. Here is what's devastating in this moment. This is the portrait that Heloise deserves. This is the image that showcases who she is in her rage, her anger, her mourning, her confinement, her love, her joy. This is Heloise. But as Marianne mentioned earlier in the movie, there are rules, there are conventions, there are ideas in how you portray someone. And Heloise responds, you mean there is no life? There is no presence? You see me dead? When we go back to Heloise seeing the portrait for the first time, she looks devastated that the person she's falling for sees her in such a way. And while that can be understood beforehand, it can't be fully grasped until you see the portrait of who she really is in this shot, just standing here. This is Heloise. This is a woman who does not run from fire but wields it, becomes it. This shot is both devastating and beautiful as most amazing things are, because it showcases this is who I want you to see me to be. She stands there with the fire, just like, look at me, really look at me. Do you see me? Do you see me? Or is all you see this portrait you have to create to market me, to sell me? Do you see me? I am literally unwell. Just not well. Just, how are you? How are you doing? How are you feeling in this moment? Are you okay? Because one of us has to be okay, and it's not me. I was reading some posts and comments about this movie, and one thing that was talked about is how the abortion scene almost seems like it doesn't fit in this movie. And I disagree. I think when you look at this movie and talk about the plights of being a woman, the plights of being a secondhand citizen, the plights of decisions that other people partook in only affecting your life, this is an important scene. I think the abortion is an important scene, and it's also a very poignant scene because as Sophie is going through this, you see her being comforted by a baby. That's intentional. That's not a mistake. We didn't accidentally have a baby extra. It's this moment here of Sophie seeing what she's deciding to let go of, being comforted by what she's deciding to let go of. There's so much poignancy there in that moment. It almost feels like a blessing from the baby of like, it's okay. If Sophie had had that baby, she would have been cast out with nowhere to go, and she and the baby could have died. I know this movie is a romance, and I know people will probably be like, why are you making it political? But any movie that talks about the plight of secondhand citizens becomes political because politics are what make decisions for us. There are plans in place in my country to protect women who have to get an abortion, whether to protect themselves, to protect the child, whether for whatever reason. And unfortunately, we can't be mad when things become political, when politics make decisions for us. As much as a beautiful romance as it is a political movie. Not intentionally. But anything that talks about this stuff makes it political. I literally have nothing to say here, just that I'm obsessed with these shots, and you can't talk about this movie without having these shots in there. Like, are you kidding me? This puts Paint Me Like One of Your French Girls to a whole other level. We can't not have these shots. They are a painting. I want this painted. This is gorgeous. This is gorgeous. Oh, I actually do want that commissioned. Okay, I'm gonna be so real with you. I couldn't figure out why she kept seeing her before she fell asleep. She looked like the ghost of Christmas Past to me in Muppets Christmas Carol. Like, I was like, okay, so is she going to bed? Like, why do we keep seeing her in bed? Like, not my wisest moment, you know? But then getting to the end and realizing that she is seeing the end draw near, that's what's been happening. The end is following her. Eurydice and Orpheus. I love this story, and I hate this story because tragedy, you know. But what's so amazing in this movie is they take one line. Selena writes one line that changes everything. This is the strength of writing. This is why writing is so important, because it takes a story about a man's lack of self-control leading to the death of his wife. Again, a woman is a foil for a man's story. But as Heloise says, perhaps she is the one who said turn around. Completely changes everything. It gives her the control. Again, it goes back to taking control in this moment. Not only does it give power back to the woman for her fate, but it makes the story more heartbreaking. It's almost like she remembers what life was really like. Maybe she knew he had remembered her with rose-colored glasses. But what is important here is how she gets to choose and how she gets to decide, let's say goodbye here. That's beautiful. The thought of getting to choose. And then we fast forward to the end, we see the portrait, and we see the beauty of the farewell that we know has to happen. And it's also interesting that Marianne is matching the colors of Orpheus, and the portrait that we see of Heloise later is matching Eurydice. I just a glass case of emotion. Also, can we just like zoom in, zoom, expand? Okay, that's it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, here's why I believe in life after death, okay? Because you cannot have this scene playing Marian's favorite song. As you hear this line and not have her look, when I say this scene breaks my heart, I shouldn't be alive anymore. I should be dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. Just go ahead and kill me because I've died. That's how I know life has to exist after death, because I am dead. I have died. You have killed me. You have taken out my heart, ripped it, stepped on it, shredded it, put it through a meat grinder, ate it for dinner, and expect me to keep walking around as if I'm not a zombie. The scene is everything. It is everything. You know Heloise does not turn back and look. You know. When I tell you I keep begging and begging and begging for those 4 to 5 minutes for Heloise to turn around and just look, just make eye contact with the camera at that last note. We are watching this emotion. We are watching her replay the last 2 hours. We are watching Heloise replay that in her mind, and she is so close to seeing everything. She's so close to seeing her past, her love, her future, and she just can't turn around. And part of it is she can't turn around because she is so engrossed in the past that she doesn't realize she's right there, and there's no future for them. We know there's no future for them. We get that. Selena was able to have us feel the longing both characters felt for each other through the whole movie in the last 5 minutes, and I am pissed and I hate it, but I love it, and I die daily because of it. It is a scene that makes you sit there and it says, hey, you thought you got it, you didn't get it. I want you to feel what they felt. I want you to feel what they feel all the time. This is what they miss. This is what they want. Overall, I give this movie 5 out of 5 brushstrokes. I think it's my first 5 out of 5. I love this movie. In my definition, it's probably a perfect movie. I can't think of one thing I would change except for Helios to turn and look at the camera at the end, but that would cheapen the movie, and we don't want that. So it's one of those instances where you don't want what you want. Let me know what you think in the comments. Actually, I have a question for you. Would you rather be Heloise at the opera house, where you're engrossed in that moment and you don't know that your love is right there watching you? Would you rather be Marianne, watching your love the whole time, wondering if she's ever going to turn to look at you? Or would you rather both of you get to see each other but not get to do anything? Don't even get to say goodbye, don't even get to cross paths in the hallway? Or would you rather neither of you know? I think I'd almost rather none of us know. I think I'd rather not know. Because to be that close and not be able to touch who I love. Anyway, that's my time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know if you have anything you want to say in the comments. As always, I hope you have an amazing day, and see you later.